All right, let's talk about health grifters. And not only talk about them, let's rank them from the most dangerous misinformation spreaders, the scientific bastardizers, all the way to the people who are, I don't know, pretty darn good. I get so many emails from people asking me about this doctor or this influencer or that influencer. And frankly, I don't have time to go into every single one. So this is my attempt to give you my completely subjective opinion about who I think is, whoa, really bad, and who I think, well, maybe you should give them a shot. Okay, so let us go over to the tiered list. And you can see here I have 38 people. It's not a conclusive list of everyone out there, but it gives you a good idea of who I'm looking at and watching on a daily basis. Not every single one of these people is someone I would consider a grifter, just so know that when you look down at the bottom. But let's just get right into it. I will pick at random. Let's go right here to Ben Greenfield. Ben is someone that I have known for a long time. I've actually been on his podcast. And my feeling, when we talk about dangerous, we're talking about people who are giving you advice that is spreading crazy misinformation, that is putting people at immediate risk. Cringe is, they got some wild ideas. They're troubling ideas. So, there's some things that the troubling people may say is right, but sometimes when they get things wrong, it can lead us into terrible places. Conflicted, often this means like conflicts of interest. It doesn't always mean that someone is terrible, but, definitely red lights. Be aware that sometimes money can hold powerful influence. And then safe, well, go check them out. I probably think they're pretty good. So Ben, I like him. I think he's a really smart guy, but he is also very, very, I don't know, gullible. Like, he sort of believes in everything. He endorses a whole bunch of things that he shouldn't. And I'm going to put him, I'm going to put him in the cringe category. And let me tell you exactly why. Once I saw him put a Facebook post out saying that pharmaceuticals will be soon delivered via light. Like, he just put a light into a bottle of water and that will be a pharmaceutical that you can change your body. Yeah, that's weird. He was also involved in the feel free controversy. I'm putting him in cringe. If you take health advice from Ben Greenfield, you're going to end up in an area that is, well, it's potentially dangerous. All right. Who's next? Mark Hyman. Okay, Mark Hyman is the, progenitor of, let's not put him there just yet. He's a functional medicine doctor. He's a real doctor, works at the Mayo Clinic, understands science pretty legitimately. Not everything he says is outright dangerous, but he does have this longevity protocol that I find a little problematic, sort of like reversing aging. I think that, he overstretches what he believes is scientifically accurate. If you follow Mark Hyman's advice, he's probably a little bit better than Ben Greenfield. So let's put him over here, like a little better than Ben Greenfield. He's right here in the cringe category. He's also sort of an edge case for me. He might just be a troubling person. But for now, we're going to cringe and maybe we'll move him around somewhere else. Let us look at, okay. Kaya Siri. Kaya Siri. All right. If you've heard of her, I'm a little surprised. She's one of the lesser known influencers here on this list. She runs a company called HappyBumCo, which advertises enemas, like coffee enemas to get you, pregnant. If you're pregnant, to clear out your gut, to generally put things up your butt to make you feel better. Yeah, she's right up in the danger list. Straight up misinformation, bad medical advice in general. HappyBumCo, you are dangerous, in my opinion. Yeah, coffee enemas. Whoa. All right, Sanjay Gupta. All right, CNN's doctor, medical expert. Actually, honestly, Sanjay, he's in the mainstream media for a reason, is that he's not very challenging. He gives pretty decent, safe advice. I'm just going to put him, he's a safe guy. If you're going to listen to Sanjay Gupta, certainly an influencer, but you know what? He's fine. Sanjay Gupta's fine. Listen to him. A-okay. Not out there spreading misinformation. Just a pretty middle of the road doctor. Gary Brecka. If you want to learn about breath work, about how breath work can supercharge you, can make you a healthier person, he's not the guy. He has no medical training. He doesn't. I don't think he really knows what he talks about. In fact, I think that a lot of his breathwork protocols are downright dangerous. Gary Brecka, you are in the danger list. If you listen to Gary Brecka, well, just don't. Breathwork, the whole space in general, is full of a lot of sham folks. So, yeah, be worried. All right. Gwyneth Paltrow, the Goop Lab, she's a celebrity who got into the health and fitness. She's famous for popularizing the jade egg to put in a woman's vagina to help with the pelvic floor. It's got a lot of humorous takes on her. She has the Goop Lab TV show. Is she outright dangerous? Is she merely troubling? I feel like this, I feel like she's in the cringe category. She endorses a lot of stuff. She's got a big brand, but I do think that she actually sometimes, the mainstream doctors make fun of her. And she's certainly on that wellness circuit. She's certainly, she's not a doctor. She's experiments with things, but I don't think she's in like an outright danger to your health in most cases. So I'm merely putting, if you know somebody who talks about Gwyneth Paltrow, you can cringe at this, but you don't necessarily have to just call them an outright danger to human health. She's in the same category as a good old Ben Greenfield. We're going to move Mark Hyman out to the end of this list because I think he's sort of straddles the troubling line. Okay, Jen Gunter, gynecologist from Canada, talks about how menstruation, talks about tampons, talks about one of the things that I like most about her is she spends a lot of time exposing health grifters. She goes out there. She has a great book called Blood. I subscribe to her newsletter on Substack because honestly, one of her things that I really liked about her was she showed how anyone can just start a supplement company for like $28,000, and she spends a lot of effort debunking people and giving her own sort of medical advice. She is straight up on the safe category. Jen Gunter, I like you. I think you're good. You're not a grifter. In my subjective opinion. So go check her out. Okay, Deepak Chopra, the spiritual guy, the placebo king. So he's into quantum healing. All right, quantum healing is gross. Quantum healing is this idea that when you use your mind, you can affect the quantum field and change the way the world works with your brain, and in your lovey meditations that he does. There's an argument to be made that he's up in this dangerous category. However, I think that in that quantum space, he's not the worst. There is somebody in here who is in that quantum space who I think is actually pretty dangerous. But I feel like Sanjay Gupta has this spiritual bent to him. He has some medical training. I'm going to put him in the cringe category. If you know somebody who's like talking about what they learned from Deepak Chopra, you can be like, okay. He also avoids a lot of questions. I think he's, again, slightly worse than Mark Hyman because he goes way outside what medicine can actually do and talk about. All right. Alex Jones. All right, I put him on this list just because of his anti-vaccine stances, his general desire to spread misinformation, his shilling of athletic greens, which is obviously, in my opinion, sort of a danger to the influenza sphere. He's not a doctor. He's an Austin-based conspiracy theorist who spreads misinformation all over this. If you know somebody who follows Alex Jones, his medical advice, which is not medical at all, he is clearly, he's not only dangerous, he might be the most dangerous person on this list. He might be here because InfoWars is like the king. I mean, he's been sued for the Sandy Hook stuff. Like, if you take medical advice from this guy, if you have a friend who's in this danger category, who follows these people at the top, they need an intervention. They need an intervention. Okay. All right. Next up. All right. Tim Ferriss. All right, Tim Ferriss, author of the 4-Hour Work Week, 4-Hour Body, has a very popular podcast. And actually, you know what? Tim Ferriss is a smart guy. He is legitimately an interesting person who thinks deeply about issues, but he's also like highly involved in venture capital. His sponsors are sometimes on his shows. He's clearly at least in the conflicted list. At the very minimum, he is conflicted. He was involved with AG1 getting off the ground. I'm really torn between conflicted and troubling. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt here. I'm merely gonna put him in a place where his financial connections to the people he supports are troubling. But honestly, if you have an opinion about any of these people, I want to know down in the comments, because again, this is me flying by the seat of my pants here and telling you what my completely subjective opinion is of these people. So Tim Ferriss, I'm actually surprised a little bit that I've put him in such a favorable position, but here we go. Here's where we are. All right, let us look at, where is David Sinclair? So I just recently put out a whole thing about David Sinclair. Now, David Sinclair, longevity scientist out of Harvard, has proposed through the sirtuin hypothesis that resveratrol, or NMN, can actually extend your life. He's written about 529 papers, and honestly, he is a smart guy. But he's clearly conflicted. He's clearly conflicted because he's making so much money on what he does. Now, he doesn't fit that clear and present danger. He's also not on the cringe spiritual woo-woo place. I think that I find him troubling. I find his advice troubling. He's on the Rogan circuit. He's our first entrant into the troubling sphere. There we go. Our first guy there. Now, I have done a full video on him. I'd love you to go check that out, because the troublingness is indeed troubling, but he at least understands the way science works. It's funny to look at this thing come together, to think that I think that Sinclair is less conflicted than Tim Ferriss. The tier lists are fascinating. Okay, next up, let us look at Rhonda Patrick. Honestly, of all the people who, people write me about it, they ask me mostly about Rhonda Patrick. They want to know what I think of her. And, she has a PhD. I think it's in nutrition. She is actually pretty measured. The problem with her, my feeling, is that she platforms so many people who are very problematic, who are much higher on this list. And I haven't seen her issue like a lot of corrections. She's not a danger. If you're going to listen to Rhonda Patrick, she's not dangerous. She's not even cringe. Like, she's sort of mainstream. I sort of feel like Patrick, she's either conflicted or she's troubling. I think I'm going to throw her in this conflicted place. I think that she's, she makes a lot of money from sponsors. But I think she tries to be reasoned. She tries to be reasoned. And so Rhonda Patrick, you're not safe. But I do find that people should take her suggestions with a little bit of a grain of salt. But then again, if your friend listens to Rhonda Patrick, it's still okay. It's still okay to listen to her. Joe Rogan. Let's get to Joey a little bit later. He'll be like one of your guys later that we can look at and be like, oh, where does he belong? And Andrew Huberman, yeah, you're going to have to wait for that. This is how we get engagement. I've already put Sinclair here. Is he dangerous? I don't know. Well, we're going to get to him a little bit later. For now, we're going to go Liver King. Liver King, the king of faking the fact that he eats only meat, but actually injects himself with steroids. He will sell you his supplements of ground organ meat and tell you that it made his physique the way it is, this impressive, crazy physique, but he's actually on a ton of steroids. I'm sorry, but Liver King, he's dangerous. He's straight up dangerous. If you're taking health advice from a guy who was basically a comedic figure, he's right here at the top of the danger list. Do not take health advice from Liver King. RFK Jr. All right, a lot of people are talking about RFK. No, I have the blue beach ball of death. I don't know. Is my thing crashing? All right, we had a little bit of an error, and as I was moving RFK Jr. onto the board, the whole program smooshed, and RFK ended up in the safe list. But you know what? RFK is not in the safe list. Spoiler alert. RFK, the problem with him, I mean, honestly, as a politician, whatever you think about politicians and his politics, that's one thing. He is a major anti-vaccine misinformation spreader. You should go watch the John Oliver episode on him. He also put a bear in Central Park. He dumped a bear carcass in Central Park, and he has a worm ate part of his brain. I mean, RFK is not. He is a danger in terms of the way that he presents information in the world. His politics might be, you can have your opinion on how his politics are. His health information is bad. Okay, there we go. That's what we have to say about RFK. Who do we have next? Let's talk about Jen. Dr. Jen Ashton. She is, I believe, NPC's. She is NBC's health correspondent, middle of the road, doctor advice. I don't know tons about her, but I find that as far as celebrity doctors go, I think that her advice is fine. I'm going to put her in this safe list. A doctor that if you got to listen to someone, I think she's fine. She's totally fine. Someone says, I heard on Dr. Jen that X, Y, and Z is right. Generally, you don't really need to triple and quadruple check those facts. Dr. Andrea Love. Now, Dr. Andrea Love is a friend of my channel. I've done some interviews with her about Andrew Huberman. She is very science forward. She spends most of her time debunking things, but she also works at the American Lyme Association. I think she might be the director. She's very high up in that organization. Is very, very measured in her advice. My criticism of Andrea Love is that she doesn't give a lot of credit to people in the wellness space. She doesn't seem to believe that there is anything to pretty much anything in the wellness movement. And I don't agree with her very hard science stance on things. That said, I don't think anything she says is dangerous. I don't think she's cringe. I think that she's totally safe to listen to. And it's okay to disagree with some positions on people. I think she is a good person. You should go subscribe to her newsletter. The only thing I have to say about her is that sometimes some of these things in the wellness world aren't terrible. Some of them don't actively harm you. And I think that she does sort of more fall on these things are actively dangerous. All right. Dr. Oz. All right. So Dr. Oz, I put him in the safe. He doesn't belong there. Dr. Oz was Oprah's, cardiologist. He is a very well-known, very well-respected cardiologist. If you're going to get heart surgery, I highly, and you had the opportunity to work with Dr. Oz, you could absolutely do worse. The problem is he also platforms a lot of misinformation. And the longer that he was on air, the worse that he got, the things that got worse. And, I will say that I've been on Dr. Oz's show. One thing I will say about him, he's very, very sharp, like really, really a smart guy. But I think he's, the conflicts of interest with him are huge. I ran on the Republican ticket. For me, he's somewhere between cringe and troubling. I'm going to put him in cringe. And I think people will disagree with this. I think people will, I'm putting him in troubling. I think people will say that he actually belongs higher up on this list. And And now that I look at this list and I see the people that I've put in cringe, I've changed my mind. He's borderline. He's just like Mark Hyman. He's actually a little worse than Mark Hyman. He's there. He's there. That's where he is on my list. He's cringe. There we go. All right, Rangan Chatterjee. Rangan Chatterjee is a British doctor. I think he is a internal medicine doctor. I'm not totally sure about that. He's a wildly popular podcast, and what he does is he platforms wellness grifters continually. I think that when someone goes on his show, they're based on popularity. That said, he does practice as a physician, so he understands what it means to have a doctor-patient relationship. I find him troubling. I think he knows the difference between good and bad science, but I think that in order to get more traction, he pushes the envelope and puts it into worse places. Okay, now a lot of you have not heard of John Romaniello. Okay, Romaniello. He is Arnold Schwarzenegger's fitness coach at one point. He wrote a book called Becoming the Alpha. And lately he's been very seriously involved in the polyamory space, as in, promoting polyamory and how to do it. And if you actually listen to his advice on those shows, he's very reasoned on how to be respectful with partners, et cetera, et cetera. So the reason he's on this list, though, and where I'm going to put him is because he's been accused, what feels credibly by a podcast called Segs Talk Radio, of raping 50-plus women. Now, I haven't verified all those accusations. I've talked to people, but actively involved with these crazy allegations against him. Again, that I haven't. I don't know if any criminal cases have yet been formed, but there's a huge controversy with him. A lot of people are incredibly angry, and I'm going to put him, out of just pure caution, on the clear and present danger list. Also, the whole becoming alpha idea. Anyone who tells you that they could be alpha is a scumbag. The whole alpha male idea is totally bankrupt. Wolves are not alpha. They're not organized in those hierarchies, and yet these people have profited incredibly on that. Yeah, clear present danger, right up there with RFK and Liver King. Dr. Mike. Dr. Mike is a New York-based osteopath who's a DO, not an MD, and has a really entertaining, funny channel on YouTube. Ranked one of the most attractive doctors, medical influencers in the world. And I have met him. I've had long conversations with Dr. Mike. And you know what I appreciate most about him is that he concerns himself with ethics. He spends a lot of time debunking science, and he could easily have made millions of dollars shilling muscle milk. Instead, he's focused his channel on being a credible doctor, teaching you how doctors think in the real world. Dr. Mike is way okay with me. I put him squarely in the safe list. In fact, I think as far as influencers go, as far as the whole idea of being a medical influencer, I think his channel is super entertaining and factually accurate. It's a rare mix, and I put him clearly, solidly in the safe list. Andrew Weil, been around for a long time, serious medical doctor, also one of the progenitors of the wellness sphere. One of his, he wrote some very interesting papers on medical cannabis back in the 80s. He's a vegetarian, maybe sometimes vegan diet. You guys will know Andrew Weil better than I do. Where does he go? I think Andrew Weil, he has these wellness magazines that go out. He's very much on that spiritual woo-woo area. He's sort of similar to Deepak Chopra, who, where did I put him? I put Chopra on cringe. I feel like he's even better than Chopra. I'm going to say Andrew Weil is conflicted. He is on that wellness world, very much on that wellness world, but I don't know. I found especially his early research was okay. I might be wrong on him. So if you have more information about Andrew Weil, I've pronounced it two different ways. I'm not actually sure how it's pronounced. Let me know. Dave Asprey, the bulletproof diet man. Again, I've been on his show at least twice. I find him, he's like a pure hack. he invented the bulletproof coffee. He has that biohacking conference. I find biohacking, the very concept of biohacking, a little problematic. Like, what are we really doing when we hack bodies? He has no science. He has no real scientific background. He's really just an influencer. I don't know if any of his things are actively dangerous. Right, I'm trying to think between dangerous and cringe. He's very much in the Ben Greenfield mold. I find it maybe even like slightly more cynical. Very popular. Yeah, I mean, he's certainly conflicted. He's certainly troubling. And I find like if you meet somebody, maybe this is the litmus test for a lot of this. You meet somebody and they say, this is I listen to Dave Asprey and therefore I'm modeling my life on this. Yeah, that's cringeworthy. That's straight up. He is a cringeworthy person. I'm still looking at Mark Hyman. I'm wondering if he only belongs in troubling. I feel conflicted about where I've put Mark Hyman. I don't know. Let's talk about Ritual. Ritual. He's another very famous podcaster. Measured. He was on the cover of Outside Magazine. Generally nice guy. Pretty good podcast. The thing that I don't like about him is that, again, it's a lot of sponsorships. It's a lot of like, when you have a lot of money coming in to your program, it can make you less credible. I think I think Ritual is conflicted. I'm willing to change my opinion about Rich. I'm willing to choose to move him into possibly safe. I haven't listened to enough of his shows, though. So if you have a strong opinion about Rich Roll, I'm interested. But if you know something about him that maybe puts him higher on the list, again, I'm interested in that. I'm interested in that too. Andy Galpin. All right, so he has been a lot on Andrew Huberman's list, right? He comes on his show a lot. He is one of the number one podcasts around. I've met him only once. I think maybe I've met him twice, but we've corresponded a little bit. The thing about him is he's heavily involved in venture capital. Okay, he's heavily involved with businesses that want to do human performance and get things and make things. He wants to directly profit. I've gotten some letters from people who've signed up for his programs and blame him for making him sicker and actually physically hurting them. I don't know how far I want to believe that. For now, I'm going to put him in the conflicted list. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on some of these things. And if you have an opinion, let me know. His close relationship with Andrew Huberman, I do find a little bit troubling. That may throw him up here a little higher. Mercola. Okay, Dr. Joseph Mercola, and that's not Joseph Mengele, a different guy. Joseph Mercola is one of the kings of vaccine misinformation. I have met him, and again, I've been on one of his shows. He's even written about Wim Hof and how Wim Hof is potentially dangerous. And if you followed me, you know that I have some issues with Wim Hof. Mercola, he honestly is very, very smart. He is a medical doctor who understands the patient relationship, which I have generally been more favorable to in this. That said, he is so anti-sunscreen, so anti-vaccine, so involved with spreading misinformation. He's been rated one of the top misinformation spreaders in the world based on his social media. And I think he has to actually go up here with Alex Jones. And I think he's better than Alex Jones, okay? As someone who actually practices medicine, he is better than Alex Jones. That said, you got to be worried about Mercola. If someone tells you that they got this advice from Mercola, you got to talk to them about how he is actually dangerous. Rohin Francis. Yes, that's right. Midlife crisis himself, popular YouTube channel, British doctor, British cardiologist, which some people would even call a doctor. No, I'm just kidding. It's a doctor. I've talked to Rohin many times. I've had long discussions going between the wellness world and the doctor world. He's very critical. He's actually very funny. He's right up here with my safe guys. He's one of these good guys, one of these people who's out there trying to spread good information on the internet and make it entertaining. I find him, you know what? He's up here. He's with, let's put Sanjay. Sanjay's not as fun. So these are my fun guys. We got Rohin and we got Dr. Mike. These guys are great. Put them up there. Go subscribe to their channels. They have my full endorsements. Paul Saladino, the carnivore diet. Carnivore diet, eat all meat all the time. He's been debunked on multiple occasions. I'm not fully. I don't know enough about him, but I will say that everyone I know who is religious about the carnivore diet, they make me cringe. They make me cringe. And you might know more about Paul Saladino. He is, again, I am not a fully up on everything that he does, but I worry. I worry about Saladino. I do. Danielle Bellardo, another cardiologist, actual medical doctor. She spends a lot of time talking about the doctor-patient relationship. She talks about, statins, how they are beneficial, and I think, the thing that she is very much on that sort of, I'm a very attractive health influencer. I don't know if we can hold her being very attractive against her. I think that she is, honestly, she's very smart. She's a super smart lady. And she is safe. She is safe. She's a safe person to get your information from. And she isn't a practicing cardiologist and teaches at she gives lectures at many of the big influencers. I don't actually follow her on Instagram, but I do think that she's pretty good. Peter Attia, you've seen my video on Peter Attia. Now, Peter Attia, the thing about him is that he takes a lot of money from sponsors. He takes a ton of cash, as indicated by his lawsuit with Oura Ring, and yet he's also was a McKinsey consultant. So he went to medical school. He dropped out of medical school. He went and worked for McKinsey. Now. And then he became like a super well-paid health influencer. To work with Peter Attia costs, I believe, right now around $150,000 a year. He's absolutely has conflicts of interest. Absolutely. And I feel like he tries really hard to present a good message. I think his book Outlive is pretty decent, but I'm wary about him. I'm wary about Peter Attia. But he's not as bad as these cringy people up here. He actually does have a lot of decent advice. He is merely troubling. I think that if somebody tells you that they follow Peter Attia and they heard something on Peter Attia, I think in general, he's probably giving you pretty decent advice. That said, you have to keep in the back of your mind that he's getting a lot of money from his various VC adventures. Wim Hof. I wrote a book about Wim Hof called What Doesn't Kill Us. Wim Hof was a person who was very close to me for very many years, and I practice the Wim Hof method every single day. I do the breath work. I do the ice work. I think that there's a lot to it, but if you're going to take medical advice from him, well, he's very anti-vax. He's very anti-medicine. He talks about conspiracy theories. He talks about Big Pharma wants to shut him down, maybe even kill him. He's out there, and also 34 people have died doing his method, mostly by drowning. It's because he does not know what he's talking about. In terms of advice, in terms of like you're going to take health advice from Wim Hof, he is up here in this danger category. He's not as bad as Romaniello. Romaniello's might have been involved in 50 rapes. But I think that he is in the danger category. And if you're going to listen to him, there's a real problem with that. Joe Rogan. Where do you think I'm going to put Joe Rogan? The ultimate platformer, the comedian who tells you over and over again that you should not take his health advice. Joe Rogan, we all know about him. He made $400 million with Aubrey Marcus selling his supplement Alpha Brain that was based on no science. In terms of if we talk about cringe, he's definitely cringe. But even worse than that, I think he's a danger because he doesn't know what he's talking about. He admits that he doesn't know what he's talking about. Joe Rogan Joe Rogan's a danger. He is a danger. If you take health advice from him, it is actively dangerous because he's just not credible. He's just not credible. And he platforms so many people who do not know what they're talking about. Rogan is right up there. He's worse than Wim. Aubrey Marcus, buddy of Joe Rogan, not as charismatic, not as funny, not as doesn't actually even dispense as much health advice. Most of his health advice is like do ayahuasca, do by psychedelics, and go deep on that. Aubrey is, he's dangerous. He's straight up dangerous. I think he runs like a very sex cult sort of thing in Sedona where they all wear robes. Problematic. If he's giving you health advice, don't listen to him. He just don't. I did a whole podcast about him and Joe Rogan. That was demonetized because he was involved with the Fleshlight Fortune, which is a male sperm collection. It's a whole thing. I'm not going to go into it. Go watch that video because it was demonetized. I can't talk about it. Steve Gundry. Steve Gundry is someone that he's probably on this list, the person I know the least about. I went on his website right before I put this list together, and I saw that all it did was sell supplements. It was supplement after supplement after supplement. I think that's troubling. I think that doctors who sell mostly supplements, and that's also like a Hyman thing. I think that it's weird. It's weird that a doctor thinks that supplements are actual pharmaceuticals. So no. Okay. Adam Rodman. I'm picking him now because Adam Rodman is a medical historian. He has a podcast called Bedside Rounds, and he doesn't issue a lot of medical advice. He talks more about the history of medicine, where medicine has come from, how it has become what it is today. And I think he's really, really smart, really, really measured. There's no conflicts of interest that I'm aware of. He is absolutely safe, and I think you should subscribe to Bedside Rounds, his podcast. Huberman. Should I do Huberman? No, I'm not going to do Huberman last. Huberman is last. So let's talk about Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza is the quantum healing dude. He really, really believes in quantum healing, which means that you can pray your way to changing the way your quantum energies work. Yeah, what's up with that? He's one of the heads of Quantum University. He believes that blue aliens visit his workshop. Yeah, there's no place to put him other than this dangerous group, because people who follow him will refuse to get actual medical advice. He's in this sort of cult of insanity. I did a whole video about him on my main channel. Joe Dispenza, you are no good. And now my face, I'm going to actually have to move my face here. One moment as I move my face. Okay, now I'm down here. So now you can see the dangers up top. Okay. Who are we on now? Matt Walker. Matt Walker is the sleep scientist. He wrote a great book called Why We Sleep. I referenced it frequently in my book Dream. I think he's super smart. He was attacked by Pfizer when he critiqued Adderall Ambien. While he critiqued Ambien, and I find Walker to be really inspiring. His book is super, super inspiring. That said, he has a very, very close relationship with Andrew Huberman. I've talked with him about it. He went on Huberman right during all of the allegations that were against Huberman. And I also found out recently that he sponsors a lot of like the same products that Peter Attia sponsors, and whether it's the Aura Ring or it's like a self-cooling mattress that supposedly makes you sleep better. It's super grifty, actually. He's involved with a lot of grifty things. So while I think that his science, I believe it's not terrible, I find that he has serious conflicts of interest. And so if you read Matt Walker, I actually really liked his book, Why We Sleep, but I find that he belongs right here in that conflicted category, that if you cannot listen to everything that he says and take it for real. And now the head honcho himself, the man I've critiqued more than anyone else on my channel, except maybe Wim Hof, Andrew Huberman. Is he a clear and present danger? Is he following his advice? Will that get you in trouble? Is he merely cringeworthy? If you hear someone saying, "Hey, I listened to on Andrew Huberman something, and now I take his advice," is he troubling? Is he conflicted? Where does Andrew Huberman fit? Well, here's my deal with Andrew. He's a Stanford neuroscientist. He is incredibly well educated. He is very charming, and he gets a lot of his science correct. Like a lot of his science is like legitimate, real science. However, the problem with Huberman is that he's really like he oversteps his boundaries all the time. He often says things that are very poorly researched. He takes on faith the things that the guests, whatever statements his guests say, and his guests are often like straight up grifters. I find Huberman. It's like, here's the thing. The danger of Huberman is that he's probably about 80% right about things. Like, of the things that he's involved with, you're like, oh, well, about 80% of what you say is pretty accurate. But that 20% of straight up flim-flam, it's a problem. It's a really, really big problem. And it actually makes it more dangerous because if he's so charismatic, he's so engaged, and you think that everything that he says is actually right, and that 20% can be super, super dangerous, which is why but if someone also says, hey, heard something on Andrew Huberman, I don't necessarily think that it's all bad. So I'm actually going to put Huberman in the troubling category, because he's not the worst thing that's ever happened to science, but it's that 80-20 split is where he says things, he says it to make you believe to make you actually honest, to sell a lot of products. And he's been involved in things that make me feel like he's just not a truly honest broker. So this is my tier list. This is my final tier list. Here's where people stand. You now know. I will post a photo of this on my chat at some point, and then you will know where at least my completely subjective take is on these people. So thank you for coming to my back channel and engaging with me on one of my more speculative topics. And I appreciate you being here. So please like and subscribe. This is the channel where I do sort of these more opinionated pieces, whereas my main channel, that's sort of where my deep investigations go. So yeah, I really appreciate you being here. From Pokey Bear LLC in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney's Back Channel.